Recording. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode number 23 of the Grappler's Dilemma podcast. Please ignore the mess in the background. We are preparing for an annual camping trip coming up during the weekend, so my living room looks like a bomb went off a little bit. I have Matt Krause back for time number 4. Dude,
I think this is at least 5.
At least 5? Okay, so
5.
you've been here for a quarter almost of all the podcasts.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been awesome, dude.
Yeah.
You're like my favorite person to bring on here because the day leading up to the podcast was super fun too. Went out and played some pickleball, did an ice bath, and I will say, to this day, nobody's broken like the 2:30 mark jumping in there. I do 5 minutes every time. I warm that water up with my body heat as best I can. And people just have a hard time, dude. Have a hard time diving in.
It's been a long time since I did the ice bath.
Yeah.
And I only got like 2 in 10
Yeah,
today.
right around there.
Rough.
I thought that you were going to be the one to break the curse, to be honest with you, dude. I was like... no.
I felt shameful. I felt so ashamed.
I know.
Fortunately, I got it back at pickleball.
Yes.
But I still don't feel I got it back because I failed
because it's pickleball. Yeah, pickleball, he beat me 10-0 one match. It was just pretty bad. But we stomped out some little, like, 12-year-old kids, which felt really good.
Yeah.
It was after a comeback of the first match being, like, close enough that I was starting to feel like this might be a problem.
Well, they didn't mess up for, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They hit every shot perfect, and we're up, like, 6-0, and we were like...
Yeah, looking at each other.
The kids were half our size.
One of them was wearing slides.
I was like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, it was no.
But
good,
then we
dude.
got it together and we stomped them.
Yeah, so we started off with that. Then we did some shopping for camping kit. I'm like so anxious about this camping trip, dude. As far as not having, I just haven't camped like this before, dude. We've done like state park camping, like drive in, plan it out, and it's like, oh, bathrooms are right here, civilizations 15 minutes down the road, you know, so it's going to be a different deal. Anyway, so today's episode, we're going to change things up a little bit because talking about jiu-jitsu, and we will talk a little bit about martial arts, right? This is a martial arts podcast. That is the hub. That's why I'm thinking about it now. It's like jiu-jitsu and martial arts is this hub in the middle of the wheel, but other life things are these spokes that come out from the center of that hub. But jiu-jitsu is just like the central component that brought people in here and get people listening, and it's something that I can always kind of fall back to have topics. But today we wanted to talk about movies, so that's going to be like the bulk of what we're going to get into in the back half of the podcast. And I guess I won't say too much about it now, but one thing I did want to talk about, because I mean, you just hear stories about this all the time, and I don't know anything about the military side of this. My experience is only in law enforcement. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about like military and law enforcement combatives program and DT stuff, like so defensive tactics and the stuff that they train through. I know basic for me was the police academy and in-service training within the police department, because being this deep into like my martial journey and my journey with jiu-jitsu, I have an even greater idea of the things that work versus the things that don't, the things that you should be prioritizing, optimal ways of training and that sort of thing. And in hindsight, looking back, dude, it's just like, wow, I can't believe we're sending guys on the road with a very poor representation of what violence and combat actually looks like. So when I got into the police academy, they used to have a thing called Fight for Life, right? So you do your DT stuff, and then at the end of the year, like your final was a guy in like a padded suit, more or less, and it was a fight for life. Usually the guy in the suit was some type of trained martial artist, like a MMA guy or whatever, so he was able to kind of throttle up and down to really push whoever was in front of him. And you hear all kinds of crazy stories. I heard one story about so like one of my old instructors, Gary Drake, he was in that suit, grabs onto this girl's shirt, and she like grabbed his thumb and snapped it off, like totally snapped it, because like, you know, like spazzy white belt. Well, imagine now you're saying to a bunch of guys that are trying to be cops, guys and gals that are trying to be cops, like, okay, this guy's going to try and kill you, and like you got to figure it out. But they don't understand. It's like, well, you're not going to gouge the eyes of your instructor.
Yeah.
But you just like go code black and do whatever you got to do. Greg Anderson tells this story of the guy in the red man suit was behind a student, and the student does like this snapping turtle thing where he like reaches out and then bites onto the finger of the instructor. Like, you hear little stories like that come out of the Fight for Life thing. But they did away with that. By the time that I came around, that wasn't even part of it. We never really had any type of like hard sparring or hard drilling. I didn't really get. I mean, I had already had a little bit of jiu-jitsu experience before the academy and training MMA when I was like 18, so I kind of knew. And you do like your bare knuckle boxing, your schoolyard fights, and that kind of stuff. So I wasn't like totally uninitiated into knowing what that kind of stuff felt like. Mm-hmm. But dude, in hindsight, a lot of the stuff that we were learning was almost like it was just a smoke show, right? Like this dog and pony show of like, this is a straight arm bar. This is how you take someone to the ground when you're trying to escort them in handcuffs. But there was no discussion of, hey, 120-pound female officer, this probably isn't going to work for you when you're grappling against a 190-pound man. Yeah. So there was a lot of that. And I don't know. I guess like the combative side of it, when it comes to like the military versus law enforcement, there's obviously going to be a delineation just because of the capacity that you're working in, right? There's there's very different functions in those agencies, or working in that respect. So we did a lot of. There was no jiu-jitsu. Like nothing to be spoken of there. It was like very fundamental passive handcuffing positions. There was no striking beyond like using a baton, and even the baton stuff was like, okay, but what if this guy closes the distance and I don't have the ability to like swing this? Like stuff like that was never discussed. It was really, and I didn't know how to make sense of it other than like whoever was running that program just kind of talked themselves into a position. I know they were like a traditional martial arts guy with probably no real pressure testing other than, Gary Drake, who ran the firearms program, and he ran some, within that program, he did a lot of like simunition and cert pistol, which is like a, for those that don't know, it's modeled like a handgun in weight. You can drop your magazine and kind of stuff. The trigger pull feels relatively realistic, where there's a break there, and it just clacks on a little light, so you see where that laser is going to hit when you're messing with that. Cool. No, like mechanical feedback as far as the gun's not cycling or anything, but it allowed us to like, we have this in, and then we're in some type of grappling scenario, and then we have to get to it and run that. But that was it, and it was very.
Did you have the knives with the little electric?
No, dude, that would have been too. Yeah, there's no way. At least in Washington State, there's no way that the training that would be like, that's too aggressive, because they were trying to change over to like a softer way of policing for sure. Yeah, which is pretty sad. But it was just a lot of stuff that like wrist twist stuff. They used to, the jiu-jitsu guys that would go through the program would call it like the wristy twisty, the wristy twisty curriculum, and it was just like known to guys that had been on the road, like we don't use this stuff because it just doesn't work. And there's so many videos of cops online trying to take someone into custody, and it's like, especially as like a seasoned grappler, where it's like, this guy has no idea what he's doing, and he doesn't ever train even the stuff he learned in the academy, because he just goes into like grab him and get him to the ground kind of a mode. Yeah, and I find that so like. The big issue that I had is like, so when I left, they actually brought in a guy that was a black belt out of King County that was starting to run the DT program and like teaching the guys jiu-jitsu, and all the cops were like, there was like this sentiment that's like, there's no reason you should get out of the police academy after the 5 months or whatever you're in there, not even not have a blue belt. We are here to like train you guys. You're taking 6 hours a day potentially to do DT on these days. It's every day, 5 days a week, and they scrapped it. Scrapped it for other stuff, and there's like no more, as far as I understand, like not even there's like no hands-on beyond compliant handcuffing positions and trying to use coercion with handguns and stuff. And dude, I don't even know how to, like, you can't, like, I understand that like bureaucracy and stuff, like steering the ship in a direction that you would really change the paradigm when it came to that type of training was going to take some time, but it was kind of disheartening. And it's even more disheartening now, knowing what I know and knowing that they're sending guys out on the road like that. And it wasn't much better once they got into.
By trying to be softer and kinder and gentler, you're removing the ability to de-escalate things, right? It's like, so if something escalates, all you have is
handgun,
your gun.
Yeah.
Like what? So Yeah, I don't know. I think the jujitsu stuff obviously works to bring things down and gives you control of a situation where the absence of that, it just automatically it's either nothing or all the way.
Yeah, for sure. Like working in the capacity as a cop too, it's like jujitsu is a prime martial art, especially if you bring stand-up grappling into it, because our ultimate goal is to take someone into custody, get them on the ground, restrain them, control them. That's precisely right. So, to come from a place where it was like, it's like stepping in. This is a wrist lock, and it was like, yeah, but there's no control of his other arm for him to punch you in the face or to turn away and yank away from you and run. And there's a lot of guys out there when they're hopped up on drugs or they're just big prison buff dudes that are going to get away. It's really kind of a scary situation. It's less than desirable, and honestly, I think that beyond just failing our officers, like we're failing the community at large when we're not training our guys in a way that's useful. I don't know what your experience was like in the military, because it's it's kind of a different animal as far as combatives and stuff. But I'm just curious, like what you guys did.
Yeah. So I think the military has a lot of the same deficiencies and the same struggle to find a purpose for their martial arts combatives program. When I think it's still the same. There's they do have an elective 4-step like combatives program, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 1, it's been over a decade since I went through some of these, but I think level 1 was a week, and it's basic arm bars. Sure. It's basic grappling stuff. And I think they start you out there because of the ease of learning some basic grappling techniques and giving you a little confidence. Not everyone goes through that. I think the amount of people that go through the combatives levels at any rate I think it's pretty low. Level 2 kind of progresses to where you're more in full kits. I think you have a blotter suit, and you gotta, there's capstone events where you gotta attack some. We were in some Connex and fight off all these dudes in blotter suits, and you have you have dummy weapons and stuff. It's a little more practical. I can't even remember level 3, and I never did level 4. But they just kind of increase the working with in full kit and in realistic. And then they also have this all army combatives program, which would do tournaments. But I think that waxes and wanes kind of at different generals' directives and discretion. I think one of the things when I was a young lieutenant, they had it, and so you would compete in a local or on your post in a tournament, and if you won that, you would go to the all army tournament. So I got to do that my first year fully in the army. But I think part of the thing was some generals feel like we're just training MMA fighters here, and they didn't want that, because the real purpose is kind of like we just talked. It's to control the situation. It's to get space so that you can use your weapon. It's to utilize your gear. You're wearing a Kevlar helmet.
Gotcha.
You have a weapon. You have a bulletproof vest on. You shouldn't be grappling.
Yeah.
But then also there's the part of instilling the warrior ethos, which is perhaps the largest part, in my opinion. It's getting people comfortable dealing with conflict and in these situations. So I think they did it 1 year after I competed, and then they paused it. Okay. I don't know if it's kind of come back, that all army tournament. The year I was there, they started giving they gave some black belts. Tim Kennedy was there. He got a black belt, and they gave a couple to some other people who were really impactful in the all army thing. Sure. Tim Kennedy won a few years of those tournaments, but the competition was high at these.
Is that right?
It was really, really high at the all army tournament, particularly. I think I was in a 32 or 64 man bracket. It was a massive bracket. No kidding. And so they have graduated rule sets. So you start out doing just grappling, and then you get to the semis, and it's pancration. And so kicking, I think we were wearing shin guards and no punching to the face, but you could slap. And then the finals would be MMA.
Gotcha.
In a cage. At the All Army, when I went to, I got knocked out the round before the pancration, so I didn't get to do that. But I did in the smaller tournaments on different posts. I competed and won a few, and so those would have the same graduated sets.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny when you do the pancration rules, because I feel like some people just get really distracted by the slapping. You know? And I would not really get too distracted with that and not focus on utilizing a lot of those strikes that, I don't know, like I would just kind of dominate and have control and look for the submission, right? And if I'm on top and I'm controlling the situation, then what is the slapping? I it's like,
no, I get that.
It's like I was very, very minimal with that, but it's a really fun rule set and really cool to be a part of. I'm glad I got that opportunity, but I don't know if it's still around. And again, I think some folks feel it's just training MMA fighters and deviating from what we should do. And it is true. Like,
what was the training? What did it look like leading up to it? Like, what were you guys training?
That was so awesome. Yeah. So I basically got assigned to like the Combatives Fight House for a while. I think I told this on like my first time on here, but I spent like 2 months. All we would do was train. I'd go in the morning, do grappling. It's just like going to the gym.
Gotcha.
It is literally like going to like for the All Army team. It was essentially just training at like a jiu-jitsu gym. I'm cutting weight after we're training, going up and doing wrestling with the Air Force cadets at the academy, and then we'd come back and we'd train at my buddy's gym.
Yep.
So it was literally just MMA training. But I think you want your soldiers and your police officers to have that warrior ethos and to really, like you're talking about as you've progressed in your martial arts career, how it's allowed you to see the utility of some of these things, the futility of a bunch of other things. Like, don't we want some of those kind of folks in uniform, like bringing that set of eyes into our program and helping to refine it? So, but like writ large, the stuff that most people go through, because most people don't get that. Most people just go through like the level 1 entry program.
Yep.
And I mean, and really most people get like an introductory class, kind of like what you were talking about.
Gotcha.
Where they'll do combatives a couple times at PT. They might do it a little bit at basic training, but they're just getting a taste. They are not getting indoctrinated very much. They're going to learn how to do. They're going to basically learn like what a white belt would learn in a couple weeks.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, the physical skill set is obviously an important component to that, but I think you're right when you're talking about like the mental fortitude that comes with it, right? Like when you get to some type of violent encounter and your brain's already been there, you know what I mean? Oh, it's like I remember this feeling. I know what this adrenaline dump is. When you start to recognize that, I always talk about, right, when jiu-jitsu, when you just start training, that's like where it starts. And then when you start doing tournaments, it's like, this is okay, now this is a different type of adrenaline dump you get. And then even the more that you do that, you like recognize that feeling, and all of a sudden it's not as overwhelming as it was before. And that's why I think that when you bring that type of like heavy, aggressive, violent training into into your scope of just training, that there's just so much value in it. But I do think, from the law enforcement side of it, I think that there is kind of this idea and this push towards, well, like, we're not here to train a bunch of like violent, we don't want our cops to go out there and be violent. But the lack of understanding that shows to me is that, well, when you have a bunch of guys walking around that are really comfortable and efficient and proficient with violence, they're like way less likely to fall into utilizing it, and that spells
and
itself out.
And they'll use the least amount of violence
because they're
necessary.
Like you were saying, right? There's like, they can scale it because it's not like, oh shoot, this guy's being verbal, now I'm grabbing on and he's breaking away from me, and now I have my gun.
Think about you versus like some drunk 23-year-old dude at a bar.
It'd be like playing with a baby.
It's like, if you guys if there was a conflict, it's like his only mechanism is to like throw haymakers and just like someone is going to get like knocked out. Or like if I'm in that, it's like I can secure you and like de-escalate
totally,
like without any punches being thrown, no one going to the hospital. Yeah.
It's kind of a wild thing, dude. It's trying to really. I could go. So this is just going to be like a taster because I think that what I'm going to do, my next solo episode, I really want to dive into this, like what my experience was like and why I think that like something has to change. And I don't know that other agencies in other states are better about their mode of training, but I would imagine not so much because it's kind of the onus is on the department to really give their guys. But the other aspect of it is there's a lot of cops that don't want to train.
Yeah, it's like, not the onus is actually on the individual.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's like if you have a bunch of folks who do this for their free time and bring that in, that's great.
Yeah.
But if you're not someone who likes doing it, you're going to do the bare minimum.
Totally.
And frankly, in the military, most people don't like it.
Yeah.
Like it isn't a bunch of people that will sign up for these courses and that do this. At the military academy, everyone had to do boxing, and then they still keep like, they try and like bring you up with like understanding how to react when you get punched in the face. So you'd had to do boxing was mandatory, and then I think the women had to do some particular combatives class, and then we had to do a combatives class as like seniors. I did elective ones throughout as well, but I remember the capstone for the senior one was, you know, you were going through navigating all these like mats and stuff. Like there were like walls constructed in this like a matted room, and there were guys in blotter suits that would come out and attack you. So they had like it's like a plastic face mask, and then like padded head and huge suits. And you know, you were supposed to go around. People would like be hiding around certain areas and attack you, and you'd have to do stuff. I remember the first corner I came around, I saw a dude in a blotter suit, and I threw just like the perfect elbow right to his face shield, and immediately his face shield just like bright red everywhere. It was just like, psh, and then he like took off his helmet and just like blood everywhere. And I like broke the dude's nose with like and frankly it was like me hitting the shield and the shield
hitting
just
his
like
face. Yeah.
Bam. So we had like a 20-minute pause to like clean up blood. It was a mess.
Yeah, but I think those things it's valuable, dude. Also, freaking protect your face, man. Like that's so funny. Like as far as the that's like an equipment failure, dude.
Yes, that
like,
equipment sucked.
Yeah, that's no slouch. But you know, it's just I feel. Man, that's the other component to it, right? It's so easy for me to sit here and be like, well, departments should be providing X, Y, Z. But the fact is, a lot of departments would be willing to send you. And if they wouldn't, there's other opportunities outside, right? Jiu-jitsu gyms and this kind of stuff to develop that skill set. So it's very like...
You kind of have to like almost incentivize people to progress in some of this on their free time.
You know, the statistics play out that guys that have a martial arts background, I can't remember if this study was done specifically on guys that were ranked in jiu-jitsu, but they tend to have they have less uses of force on the whole, and when they get into uses of force, it's way less severe than what is typical of the rest of the officers that are untrained. And I think that should be enough to tell you something, right?
I believe
when you look at those numbers. But anyway, you know, I feel like this topic, as far as a question of the day and like kind of diving into it, it deserves a little bit more thought. So I'm going to kind of put a pin in that because I want to do my next solo episode.
Make some proposals. Like it's a pretty flawed system all the way around.
Totally.
I think what will happen sometimes is an organization or the military will get sold some cool system from someone. Oftentimes they know what they're talking about. I think oftentimes they don't.
Yeah.
And they'll just kind of implement that. They'll contract that piece out.
Yep.
You know, we're going to run our combatives program through these people. But I think and there are, I'm sure, really good police departments that do a good job of that.
Yeah.
So you probably find some of those and take some lessons learned and figure out what you would. But I think it's a big problem.
Yeah, no, it's a huge problem, dude. And now as I'm sitting here, I'm realizing I thought it was going to be like this fun little, well, let's talk about combatives in the military and law enforcement. And now I'm like, man, this is kind of a heavy topic, and we're totally failing in a lot of these areas. You know, as an industry that I'm not part of anymore, but like, it's just I have a lot of guys that I know that are still in it, and they're dealing with the same problems as far as like officers either not willing to train or just like not knowing the direction needs to be taken, and the stuff that they're getting mandated to take is so lacking that it's like, what are we even doing here? It's just, I mean, it's kind of like handgun quals. Like a lot of people don't know that, a lot of these departments, the only time some of these cops are shooting is once a year for qualifications on the handgun, and it's like 30 rounds and that's it. And dude, I saw some scary stuff on the range of people having to go, hey, we're gonna have to bring you back out here to do another qual because they couldn't get shots on target that were like you should be able to hit, especially if you've been around for any amount of time. Because you do a lot of shooting in the academy, right? But it's a perishable skill. So if you're not doing it, and I was fortunate that like I didn't shoot a lot of my off time, but it was just a skill that once I developed it, I felt like kind of locked into a certain degree. I was never like this crack shot or anything, but I never, I just always my level of proficiency was just always there. But some guys it was like, dude, if you haven't shot for a few months and then you just saw it, like, dude, you're missing paper. You know, you're killing the civilian in the background.
It's the same thing in the military. I think if you're in like a high speed SF Ranger, some of the infantry units, like you might be out on the range frequently. But most of the Army is not that.
Yeah.
Like most of the Army is not those more well trained elite guys, and so they're doing like we're doing a one time a year or a couple times a year qual if that, and it's not pretty. And you would think folks would be much better with a firearm than they are.
I thought this was gonna be fun, dude. It feels kind of heavy now that I'm like diving into it and thinking about it. It just like it just irks me a little bit to know that this is what kind of how it kind of is. And now that we have access to all this footage on like Instagram and stuff, and you see that lack of training and people having issues controlling guys, you see 3 cops, they can't get a single guy to the ground. Like that kind of stuff is scary when you think that, okay, if my wife calls 911, it's potentially you and your partner that are showing up. So have you developed the skill set to be able to handle this situation? Like, should it come to it? And sadly enough, a lot of times that answer is no. Yeah. They are not. They don't have the skills that are necessary to put things to bed. Man, that was really depressing. So let's get to something a little bit more fun.
Let's do it. That was kind of the whole point with the movies thing.
Yeah. Holy crap, dude. Let me down a little bit.
I had kind of proposed talking about movies with Aaron just because Cody and I and a group of our friends, since the beginning of COVID, I think we started literally like right when COVID started, because we used to go to a meetup once a month, and then COVID shut that down, and we're in Seattle, so like basically everything was shut down. And so we pretty much immediately transferred with the core group to holding weekly Zoom calls. It started as like, hey, we should watch like each of the James Bonds. Pick a movie from each of the James Bonds, and we went through it. So we did that. We knocked that out in like a month. And then we decided to kind of carry it in. We'd do this like movie podcast. Mm-hmm. Now we don't release these yet. I think we might be releasing them in the future, but we've been doing it basically every week since March 2020.
Do you guys have a group name, like podcast name, or not? So much?
Well, I don't know about our podcast name.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I'll hold off on our group name.
Fair enough. I was just going to give you an opportunity to plug to my 6 fans that listen to the show every week. So,
well, before this group, I basically watched just stuff that was right down the pipe. You know, I was like, when's the new Avengers coming out, or whatever. Like I would watch. What I would say now is like I'd had a very normie palette for movies, and my friends did not have that. They had a much more like artistic. They like knew all the directors, knew about all the cool stuff that was going on in movies that I like never paid attention to. They could like pick up on a whole bunch of different things that it would just go over my head.
Sure.
So now we're like 250 movies in. Jeez. Like we've been doing this for a while, and we've had a lot of reps, and in the course of this, we've just watched a lot of really awesome movies. And I found myself earlier this summer and really just over the last few years recommending, like talking with people, meeting people, and like, you should watch this movie. You know, it's like, you should watch this movie. And like, I would have never known to watch any of these movies.
Yes.
So I think it's kind of cool. It's fun to be able to like have a whole repertoire of these things that I never had before. I find a lot of them are really good for, a lot of them have helped my spiritual growth, you know, my personal growth in ways that I never would have thought these things would happen. So I threw just a whole list of different movies down. I think Aaron's palette is not.
It's pretty normie tier, dude.
Normie tier.
I'm working on it. All right,
We're working on it.
Yeah. The podcast listeners know one of my favorite movies is Surf Ninjas, and that was pretty much. I'm pretty sure it was straight to DVD when it came out, dude. And it's like, yeah, it's pretty sad, but I'm doing my best. I'm actually reading a book right now called Save the Cat. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's them. So they pretty much break down the structure of movies.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
The idea is that every single movie you've ever seen will follow this structure. And if it doesn't, that movie never does well. And I find that the idea that it can be formulaic, but you're also plugging in things that are fresh to that formula that keeps movies like interesting, and people could have new takes and new ways of putting that information forward to be really fascinating. So it's almost like I'm trying, this is a weird thing to say about movies, right? But I'm almost, because I have a couple of buddies that are the same way, right? He studied film. He did a bunch of these, projects in school where he was like making his own like short story stuff. And when we would watch movies together, at the end of it, he'd be like, so what did you think? I was like, yeah, it was pretty good. And he was like, did you get it? And I was like, I mean, it was cool movie. I don't really know. And then he would just go off on this tangent. It's like, well, this kind of represents this. And if you noticed in the first scene when they're talking about this, that came back into play here. And just like, it was just like, that was my first realization, like you were saying, is like, oh, there's like layers to all of this that I was just like passively consuming a lot of this. And now that I'm like an active, I'm watching it actively and thinking through little things like, oh, okay, I'm going to take note of that.
And I think the more you watch it passively, the more you're just consuming things in your diet.
Sure.
You know,
that
your mental and spiritual diet that are often not great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to like put too much of a blanket statement, but I don't often watch a whole lot of new movies and content and shows. Like I found things over the last like decade have really taken a huge dive. Now there's still like, I think finding directors that kind of can communicate in levels like this, they're still out there. You know,
Sure.
A lot of those movies don't do great at the blockbuster, so you won't hear about a lot of them, but there are still good things being made. But I think the general, menu of things we've been given is it's not great.
Yeah,
over
for
the
sure.
last decade. I think maybe it's starting to turn a little bit. I think culture has maybe turned away from some things we were doing previously.
Well, they're starting to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the ideologies that they're injecting into film, it's people are kind of like, oh, I'm just not going to go see that. I kind of understand what you guys are doing it. You keep on doing it. And I'm not just going to keep on buying the slop that you're putting out. And so you see these huge, like Disney is a good example, right? Where they'll put these movies out, putting millions and millions and millions of dollars into it. And then it's like, oh, it lost $100 million because nobody showed up for it. Or, it becomes a meme on Snow White's a great example of that, right? It just became memed to death to a point that it was like, nobody's going to go see this. And we're done being lied to as far as like what you guys are presenting and injecting things into classic stories that are like, why are you
ruining stories that are like beautiful and have so much depth. So I think maybe to jump off, maybe talk about favorite fighting kind of based
That's
movie.
Perfect for me.
Yes.
Go.
Well, there's not, I think the fighting movies, there's maybe a dearth of like really high quality ones.
Sure.
So, it is what it is. But my all-time favorite fighting movie is Warrior. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I love that movie, man. When it came out, I think I watched that one twice at the theater, which is rare. And I watched it probably 6 or 7 times in the course of like a 6-month span. Like I love that movie.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy and it's just such a badass.
Was the brother
Joel Edgerton?
Yeah, was he? I can't remember why he got into fighting.
He was a teacher.
That's right.
He had done it before, and then he got down on his luck and needed to make some money. But Warrior's actually like everyone I've told to watch that. And I think it was pretty popular. Like, it's not complete unknown. But most people have really positive reviews in watching Warrior. Okay. I think it's even if you're not someone who likes fighting, like, it's a pretty cool story. It's fun. And tugs on the heartstrings. I always like that movie would always get me in sports tears.
Yeah. Dude, I think it's a good thing. As far as fighting movies, man, I could pick a couple of them. I recently for the sake of transparency, I recently watched Fight Club, but I don't watch that as a fight. It's not really a fighting movie.
I wouldn't classify that one in that, but I think it fits if that's like what you want to go with here.
No, I don't think so. I think I'll save that one. I think I would say my favorite fighting movie right now is a movie called Red Belt. Have you seen this movie?
I haven't seen that one.
It's a jiu-jitsu movie. Jean-Jacques Machado. Like, there's a lot of nods to like hardcore fans where it's like, oh, there's like Jean-Jacques Machado makes an appearance, or Randy Couture's in it for like a brief little stint. Like these guys that are like popping up, and they don't play like any pivotal role in it, but it's just like a nod to the fans of the sport. But it follows a jiu-jitsu instructor that runs a gym that's very like not business oriented, right? So they make no money, and it's really just a classic movie about maintaining the honor of the art. And it's this transition of like he's battling against this culture within the martial arts and within jiu-jitsu that's like driving it in more of a business direction, and that he, you know, he's doing things like giving people free lessons, and his wife, right? It's like totally like corny, stereotypical, like we can't pay for the house if you just keep on letting people train there for free. It's like, well, this person, you know, they need this more than we need this. And I don't know. I've watched it again this week just because I knew we were going to be talking about this. Like, I want to make sure that this is a movie that I would actually recommend people watch. But like Tim Allen's in it, which is kind of funny. It's but especially if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, because here, like the thing about jiu-jitsu is we are only in recent times getting the same kind of like attention and content push as things like karate did in the 80s, right? So to see kind of a classic karate martial arts movie, but you're injecting jiu-jitsu themes, and you know, it's kind of, you are kind of like taking one art and then like putting this one in there, but there's something about it as a jiu-jitsu guy that you can really attach with, and you're like, I don't know, it brings back the traditional martial art sentiment and injects it back into jiu-jitsu for me, where I'm like, yeah, that's right. This is why we're out here doing this. And there's some like dumb stuff, and like there's some things like the instructor's like, he never competes, but he's like the best jiu-jitsu guy of all time, kind of a thing. But his whole thing is like, well, it makes the martial artist weaker because it's not a real fight, and you'll forget that, right, this isn't the direction we're supposed to take this, which is like, you know, we can talk about that, but there's just little moments like that where there's this purity to it, and he wants to keep things pure, and you notice little things that I don't know, it was just nice to see a movie that we're getting the same recognition and the same treatment as like the traditional martial arts we're getting early on. So it just scratches that itch in like a contemporary time for me.
Yeah.
So Red
for
Belt,
some reason,
totally
you just made me think of have you seen the new Roadhouse?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Dude, the new Roadhouse I found very enjoyable. Sure. The new one has Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor's in it. He's got a pretty fun part. But I was watching it expecting it to be ridiculous, and you know, it actually was very fun.
Yeah.
Much cleaner.
Yeah,
than
I was
the earlier one.
I was shocked by that.
The one with Kurt Russell. No, not Kurt Russell. Is it Kurt Russell? Patrick Swayze.
Yes.
The one with Patrick Swayze is way more lewd and like offensive.
Sure.
Like we watched the first one, and my wife like we both really enjoyed it. We're like, let's watch the old one. I don't think I'd seen it all, and then we watch it, and it's like way more.
Yeah,
weird.
totally.
And just not as fun.
Yeah.
But side plug, the new Roadhouse is pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
And, like, if you're an MMA fan, you know, Connor has a pretty good little villain.
Yeah,
in it, you know?
no, he's fun in it. He's totally fun.
He's ridiculous. He's Connor, but
yeah, well, that was definitely injected into his character. Yeah. You could feel certain bits of that.
Go have fun, Connor.
Yeah, for sure. No, that was a fun movie. I hadn't thought about that. I only watched it once, but it was kind of like, you know, sometimes you watch a movie, you're like, that was a fun ride.
Yeah,
where it was just, I don't know, it's like not a junk food movie. But
those popcorn movies are
popcorn
good
movie
from
that's
time to time for sure. Well, the next thing I kind of had was war movies, and then I think like most of my list is pretty general, but I had a couple of these sidelined. I'd like to hear your favorite war movie.
Ooh, my favorite.
If you don't have one, I got one, but I can stall.
I think I would. I need to think about that for a second. So you're gonna have to give me a little bit of a. Give me a.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's all good. I'll figure one out. That's Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I really like that movie. It used to come on like every year on TV. And so my parents were very strict about what we were watching growing up.
Yeah.
But because it was on TV, generally all that stuff was edited. So like all the really hardcore parts were like you didn't really see it. Mm-hmm. But what my folks didn't know was when they played that, because it was like a national holiday. I can't remember if it was like Veterans Day or Memorial Day or what, but
you got the full deal.
You got the full deal.
Nice.
And so I was a little kid like, oh my gosh, this is so violent and crazy. But yeah, that one sticks with me. And I think it's been a long time since I've watched it.
There's some really good scenes in that one. My favorite war movie actually came out in the same year as Saving Private Ryan. It's interesting. Hollywood will do this where they'll come out with like multiple of the same theme movies. Yeah. Like they've done it a whole bunch, but
they were just leading us. It was just propaganda because we were going to go to war soon.
I would say Saving Private Ryan was a little bit more propaganda.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one thing is just kind of ridiculous. You know, there's so much like color and character given to like the good guys.
Yeah.
And the bad guys are just like
just the bad guys.
They're just like the bad guys.
Yeah.
And
Fury's another good one.
Doesn't have
my brain's going through
nice.
all these movies.
That's good.
But like war movies for me, the action component took a backseat to what characters you were bringing into it. Like I just needed to see people. I wanted to see human beings in like. Oh man, my brain is still going. Apocalypse Now is another one that I watched.
That's a good one. That's a good one, but it's weird. It gets weird. Like they're for a large chunk of Apocalypse Now, it's just like this is perfect.
Yeah,
and it takes some weird turns that are just like
for sure.
I don't know. Well, my favorite is the Thin Red Line. That, and for a long time while we were doing the podcast,
never seen it.
That was like my highest rated movie. It recently got supplanted by a movie I'll talk about in a sec, but Thin Red Line is made by Terrence Malick. He's one of those directors that like his movies have depth and soul, and like that movie has so much more humanity and like underlining like Christian themes too, but just like throughout it. So Thin Red Line, my favorite. It's awesome, and for a long time it was top of the list for me.
Would you rank The Patriot as a war movie?
I'd say it's a war movie.
Okay, then that's my number one.
Really?
Yeah, I just didn't think that you were going to give that one to me. I thought that might have been a little bit.
I'll give that one to you.
And I saw that one before Braveheart. And then when I saw Braveheart, and it didn't live up to the way I felt watching The Patriot. And like there's one sequence in particular where he's like with his boys, right? And you know what I'm talking about? That sequence where they're out in the woods and he's talking about. Well, I don't want to spoil any of these scenes, but The Patriot, dude.
I guess maybe we have to be a little cautious with spoilers. I'll try and throw out a spoiler if it's something that'll ruin a movie. But all right, just kind of the general list, and Thin Red Line was supplanted recently by one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. It is the coolest movie I've ever seen, and I think it's just a masterpiece. 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I tried to get you to watch.
Yes, yeah. I mean, dude, it was a lot to digest, and I only watched like the first. Shoot, it probably made it 40 minutes or something like that into it.
So it is an absolute experience. I think it is the coolest and most unique cinematic experience I've ever had. Like, I was told beforehand, like, watch it with the lights off. Like,
yeah.
You know, and I kind of knew.
Phone.
I knew, like, all right, lock in on this one. I've heard a lot about it. I knew and we had watched, I think, a couple Stanley Kubricks. I'd watched a couple Stanley Kubricks, and I knew this dude is on another level.
Yeah.
And when you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, it drives that home. Like, Kubrick is doing things in that movie that other filmmakers aren't able to do for like 20, 30 years.
Yep.
And just from a technical standpoint and from a visionary standpoint, I'm not sure there's anyone that really ever has matched up to him. We watched, I didn't write this one down, but it's, good Lord, the Bomb. That one. I told you to watch that one too. What the heck is that one called?
Oh my gosh, dude, I've got no idea. The Bomb one. Well, while you think about that, let me say what my experience was like watching 2001: Space Odyssey. Is it starts off with just like 8 minutes of a black screen, and right then and there, I was like, this is gonna be. It's going to be so artistic and so deliberate. That was the thing. It was so deliberate in everything it was doing.
Yes, everything.
But and again, right, I'm in the process now of like trying to consume movies in a way that's really active, and I'm trying to pay attention to everything that's going on. And there was so many like points of philosophy and points of discussion that you could have with someone, and what this represents, and like, okay, well, this is an interesting take on the history of humanity or whatever. That I felt almost overwhelmed, where it was like, and I ended up was like, okay, it's getting late. I don't even have the bandwidth to keep on going after I hit a certain point. And then you were like, hey, watch it before the podcast. And my brain is like, but you have to restart it and go through that again, which isn't necessarily a negative. It just feels like an undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like an undertaking.
I watched it twice in the week I watched it because I was like,
is that right?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it starts out 8 minutes of darkness on the screen.
Yep.
And there's like, the score is kind of picking up, and it's kind of, I think, in the background, it's basically like the creation, like, and life coming. And then it opens on a bunch of apes around a watering hole, and you get that for like 15, 20 minutes. And so it's 28 minutes into the movie before you hear any dialogue. But like you said, everything is so deliberate. It's exceptional. And like the dialogue, the sets, everything about that movie is
certainly ahead of its time too, with everything that they were doing.
I will say, like, the last scene is a little, or the last kind of like maybe 10 minutes are a little strange. Like, I think it'll make you think, like, and what the heck is going on in these last 10 minutes. But for me, the total package is still just like on another levels.
Gotcha.
The other movie was Doctor Strangelove, and how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb. It's a comedy, and it's one of the best comedies I've ever seen.
So I've heard that movie thrown out a bunch of times, and I have no idea what it is.
Dude, it is awesome. And this is another thing about Kubrick. He can make like the best sci-fi movie of all time, one of the best comedies, one of the best horror movies in like The Shining, make like one of the best time period pictures of like with like Barry Lyndon. Like, the dude would just like hop from movie to movie. And I haven't seen his whole catalog, but every movie I've seen, it's a different, it's a completely different theme, completely different, and they're all at like such a high level. But Doctor Strangelove is awesome.
What's kind of what's the setup?
There is, there's like, I think they're fighting against the Russians, and it's basically like you got a bunch of generals and the president, and They're it's kind of like a Cuban Missile Crisis thing going on, where they're trying to bluff and they're trying to stop a nuclear war or an atomic war. And a heavy subject, but he does it through a comedy that is amazing.
Have you seen Death of Stalin?
I haven't seen Death of
Stalin.
Dude,
that's another one that takes like a heavy topic and it treats it with... It gets the point across of like what was happening historically and a lot of these events and the atrocities that were going on, but it gives it the way that they infuse comedy into it. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen as well. It's like cool. you saying that just kind of like brought that to my mind, where it's like you're consuming it and you're actually getting these points, like these, you know, again, treating a heavy topic with a sense of, you know, the comedic side of it is like the absurdity to what the events actually were. And so when you bring comedy into it, it makes it even more clear.
Yeah.
Like it takes the weight off of it. So you can look at these things for what they are. And you just see them as like, this is absurd.
And it's like they're really sharp critiques.
Yeah.
Honest. I will say with 2001 too, I felt, and I've heard other like film analysts kind of talk about this, but it's like the movie has a purpose and a theme like that you pick up on, but from my viewing experience, there's like a whole nother purpose and theme that's the exact inverse of the thing you're getting.
Yeah.
That Kubrick's actually conveying, you know, about like space travel and artificial intelligence and all these things. Like there's like kind of what the movie's doing and saying, but then I've heard this elsewhere. It's like there's a shadow. Like when I watched it, I did not get that. I got this shadow thing that I was like, this is really a massive critique on this.
Really?
And so I think you have to be working on a really high level to be able to convey those things.
I mean, that's the guy that shot the moon landing, so you know what I'm saying? It took a genius.
I want to keep some credibility with some folks, but I dare say I watched that and was like,
so you could have done this. That's hilarious.
I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, interesting to say the least. Look into it, Eddie Bravo says somewhere.
The next things I was looking at were Princess Mononoke was one of the movies, and it's awesome. But larger than just Princess Mononoke is like the Studio Ghibli movies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Japanese Disney. I think guy behind him was Miyazaki. I think he's still alive. I think he's like kind of on
Spirited Away and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Spirited Away. But there is a whole bunch of really awesome movies in that collection, and really good ones for families.
What was that last one you just said? Princess
Mononoke.
I watched that one with my brother-in-law.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's an awesome movie. The art in those movies is beautiful.
Yeah, it's perfect.
The way they're dubbed and the way like the characters kind of speak, it's done in a way that can like fit other languages. They know they're getting exported out. So like the English looks, you know, it all looks pretty good, and they usually get pretty well-known actors as like the voices. But Princess Mononoke is great on the like from the Studio Ghibli thing. Like My Neighbor Totoro is like our family's favorite movie.
Gotcha.
It's awesome. You got Kiki, you got Ponyo, you got like a whole bunch of really good ones for younger kids.
A library of
and then they got some like slightly more adult teenager ones. Like Princess Mononoke is more like 13.
Yeah, for sure.
But I had never been exposed before being in this group to any of those movies. And then I watched like the first one. I was like, that's awesome. Where can I get more of these?
Yeah, well, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's like when you find movies that are in that vein that you want to present to your kids, in like the stuff they're putting out now is so infused with just BS and poor morals and ethics, where you're like, they're framing this like this is a good thing. This is not how you should behave, right? Like you see that. And, you know, to go back to the animated, into the animated well, and this is actually more of a new movie, but the reason it was impactful for me was because I felt like I was being inundated. We're like, well, we want to watch this movie. And then we'd watch it, and I'd be like, dude, that was not like that was terrible. Like
Yeah.
the movie either just like straight up wasn't good, or it was so like surface level that the themes were like so weak that I was like, ugh, it made me. I can't believe we paid for that kind of a sense.
Yeah.
But then there's the other movies where it's like, I can't believe they even talked about this in a children's movie, and they're trying to like, all right, it truly is like this weird indoctrination. But something that broke that pattern was this movie called Onward.
Oh yeah.
Dude, and so it was
I
like,
like that one.
yeah, and it was, so we were like, I mean, we're into D&D and that kind of stuff, so it's like kind of set in that realm. But the whole idea is, these kids find this, their dad like leaves them this letter for their 16th birthday. They get to try to bring him back for one day, and like one of the kids was really young when he died and all this kind of thing. And it just like, for me as a dad, there's just these moments in it where it's like you recognize the significance of that role as a father. And I know this critique has been laid into like over and over ad nauseum, as far as there's so much media out there that makes the father look either inconsequential and the mom's running everything, or just a total doof, but it's never like, oddly enough, I felt like there were so few times where it really leans into the significance of that father role and the impact that it has on kids coming up. And this really dives into that theming. And I thought it was done in a really, really good, like beautiful way. And of course, like at the end of the movie, like crying over a cartoon's pretty like, oh, very humbling. Like, oh, he just loved him so much. Like, that kind of a sense. But there's also the other relationship between these two brothers that are also in the movie. That's also really, it's just really well written and believable, and something that's incredibly relatable. So for me, when it came to like animated movies, that one like broke that trend that I was seeing when my kids like, well, we should watch this, and it's like, dude, this is a trash movie, and it's full of theming that I don't think is like, we're gonna have to talk about some of the things that they were like going over, and you might not have even necessarily recognized, but this is a conversation we have to have. But Onward was one of those movies like, dude, all day long, I just didn't see any issues with it,
Yeah. No, I remember liking that one too, and then trying to watch it again. Yeah. My daughter will watch we'll watch Tangled 50 times.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what about Onward? That was good. And I don't think she liked it as much on the first watch, but I think I might have to go back to the well on that one.
Yeah, there you go.
It's been a couple years. She was a little younger. I think she might like that one a little more now.
Just force feed it.
Yeah. I remember enjoying it and like, hey, let's do this one again. I'm going to then jump to a couple like religious spiritual movies.
Okay.
Or movies that really impacted my spiritual life. The first one was called First Reformed, and it's a Paul Schrader movie with Ethan Hawke. And he is like this pastor at this First Reformed church. It's like one of the oldest, Protestant churches in the Northeast. And so he basically preaches, and then he runs the museum that is the church where he lives.
Okay.
But it is fascinating. It's a pretty adult movie.
Does he stay Protestant the whole time?
I think he stays
Was that
Protestant.
the only downfall for you? You're like, yeah.
Well, at this time, this was like early in my walk. I was still Protestant as well. But the thing that impacted me the most, I think, was there's a lot of time in solitude. He's living in like this church by himself. And so he's constantly just like alone with his thoughts, and he's journaling, and he references like a couple people and like books and things in that like watching that movie kind of inspired me to go read like St. Augustine Confessions.
Okay.
And then to go read something from like Thomas Merton, and really kind of was helpful for me to start taking the spiritual life a little more seriously. It's also a really, like, I wouldn't say fun. It's a heavy movie. So if you watch it, it's like, be ready for that.
It's fun if you're into like philosophy and theology and stuff.
It's deep and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it hits hard. And in my case, it was very inspirational for kind of turning the corner. Another one was one that I had picked from 2006. It's a Russian film called The Island.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
How did you get turned on to it?
I was Orthodox.
Orthodox circle.
Yeah, I was Orthodox at this
course.
time. So I was like I was like listening to different folks like, what's your favorite like Orthodox movie, right? And this one was like,
What's the quality of the movie? Like,
this one's awesome.
like good production value, all that kind of stuff.
This one's awesome.
It's so funny because like all I think about is like American movies and Hollywood, and so whenever I see like, oh, it's a foreign film, I'm like, did they shoot it on like a cell phone or something? Like, which is so ridiculous because obviously there's a lot of like really
a lot of these
movies.
Foreign filmmakers make far superior stuff to what we do. I will say, like, we've watched probably 3 Tarkovsky movies. He's a Russian. He's like probably the most famous Russian director. His movies are great, but they're hard watches. They're like 3 hours. Like, feels like you're doing a homework assignment.
Really?
And I end up always picking them. Just
is that right?
I think I picked like all of them. They're good movies, but they're not everyone's cup of tea. Sure. And even for a group that's like focused on cutting through all the layers, they're at times a little bit of a chore and a slug. The Island is not that. It's but it's basically about this monk. There's a couple guys. It's like World War II. The Nazis, I think, are basically about to take over this boat with a couple Russians manning it. And they have like a bunch of coal. One dude ends up pleading, like he's hiding. He's buried under the coal. And the Nazis kind of find both of them. And he's like pleading for his life. Like, don't kill me, don't kill me, don't kill me. And so they're like, all right, you kill him and we'll let you leave.
Whoa.
So they give him a gun and he has to kill his like best friend who was on the boat. And he shoots him, and then the Nazis, they basically are like laughing and they run off and they blow up the boat. And so he's cast off into the sea, and he ends up coming ashore on this island of like a with a monastery on it. And so he is basically like a holy fool on this island for like the rest of his life. But he, through like his just deep repentance, he's like in this deep state of repentance. And there's this concept of the fool, at least in Orthodoxy, it's like a very beautiful kind of thing where, someone will basically do things that are so foolish to the world and appear like a fool, but like when you look at it with like spiritual eyes, they're like, saintly.
Yeah.
And so this man, through this like repentance over what had occurred, ends up becoming this. And so he's living on this island, this old monk now, with all these younger monks, and it's
The Island.
It's awesome.
It's
one, a 2006 Russian one. I think there's a couple of the islands. Not the one with Ewan McGregor.
Okay. All the one like of all
I
the
think
movies
I got it on Amazon.
You have talked about. That's the first one that I'm like, that's one I want to be watching.
It's great.
Well, let's go for 2 more.
Okay, go ahead.
2 more. This movie. Well, I don't even know where to go with this now. Yeah, I have to plug this movie. So, have you ever seen End of Watch?
Yes.
So
I think so. That's
End of
Jake
Watch.
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, bud. That movie for me was like the first time I watched a cop movie that felt like it was such a good representation of like what the relationship you develop with like a beat partner.
Yeah.
It was so accurate to a point that it was kind of, I don't know. It's like you see that movie where like, oh my gosh, they got this right. And I found out later that like, is it Michael Pena?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Jake Gyllenhaal, they spent like months and months doing ride-alongs with LAPD as well as the director to really get a good idea of like the culture was like. And dude, it freaking hit the nail on the head. And the other part was like, I mean, they're shagging calls that are so, it's like, it was pretty high octane movie, right? There was like some stuff like, man, that's like a once in a career kind of a thing or something that'd be like national headline kind of an event, that sort of thing. But for me, the cop stuff is always fun, dude. I mean, like watching like again, like even like popcorn cop movie where it's just like, yeah, it's like fun car chases and that kind of stuff. But that wasn't, it was really the relationships and the culture surrounding cop work that made the movie for me. It was like all the cop stuff was just it was like secondary. All the shootouts and there's like some fun gunplay stuff in there, but like just the intensity and the camaraderie and how funny and the type of humor, that was the other piece. Like the type of humor that they're cracking jokes back and forth inside the squad car, that you just walk away from it feeling like, oh my gosh, it's so funny that this, for whatever reason, this was kind of like my takeaway, that this profession, for whatever reason, just like the nature of the job, it has a way of forming a specific culture around it that is so ubiquitous from department to department that when it's all distilled down, it's like, I don't know. I was wondering, like, why do we develop these kind of relationships with our beat partners? Why does this kind of humor develop? Do these struggles develop across to a point where, like, it's just, oh, it's a cop movie, kind of a generalist cop movie, and all this theming and all these things that you kind of recognize as being true to the profession makes its way in. And so I've always like kind of thought my way through that, like wondering. For me, it was kind of a thinker after I got past the fact that it was just like a really fun cop movie. But
I don't actually. I think I remember that movie coming out. I don't think I've seen it.
That's a big recommend as far as I'm concerned. So if like,
I'll check that out.
I would say that movie was something that it was just totally relatable for the time in my life that I had seen it. But honestly, I think The Island, based on what you've told me so far, is going to be a movie that's going to top. Like, that's the movie that seems the most interesting of everything that's been
shared. We might
shared.
have to do another one of these down the road.
Sure.
Because, I have so many more we can talk about. If people enjoy this, if our 6 people that listen enjoy this.
If they're into it.
The next one I'll go into, since I'm on a short list, which is, we're already at an hour, so definitely.
We're driving. We got steaks to make.
A Face in the Crowd. It's like a 1950s movie with Andy Griffith, and it's awesome.
Wait, Andy Griffith. What else is he in? I'm terrible with actors. Griffith show. Dude. Thank you.
I can't remember all the stuff he's in, but we had a round that was 1950s, and it was awesome. Like, every one of these movies was so cool. 1950s is a great decade for movies. This one, like, Andy Griffith's kind of a down on his luck guy. He's like hanging out in the prison, but he's like really good with the guitar, and so I think they have like this call-in thing, or the radio station comes to like the prison that he's like hanging out in for a brief time, and he like the people kind of love him, whoever's listening, and so he blows up. But what's cool about it is I think it really shows how like the propaganda of mass media works. You know, it's like, because what happens is like the corporate folks start getting their hooks in him, and he starts like blowing up, becomes like a national, like just Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And you just see these like hooks like pulling him and like basically like taking his soul out.
No kidding.
And I think it's a very deeply relevant movie to like our modern society and culture. And it's a really fun one. It's enjoyable. Like, Face in the Crowd.
Yeah. There's something about old movies. Like, I remember having this thought, like, back when I watched Back to the Future, where you just watch a movie, you're like, man, there's just, this era is gone. The stuff we put out now, it's like, it's put out with the sole intent to make money. And not to say that isn't necessarily, there were obviously the monetary component was a piece even back then, but like, they were just willing to do stuff. Like, everything is safe feeling now. It's like, we know what makes money, so we're going to make Cars 16, and this time Mater's going to join a race or something. It's like where it just takes the fun out of it. But with that said, now I've found myself going back to some of these older movies that were like totally acclaimed and that people recognize as like, yeah, they took a shot on this one and it freaking worked out.
And before, I think the studios and the money and the culture had kind of degraded in ways. And there was so much kind of propaganda and things being fed to us And that particular one kind of speaks to a lot of that.
Gotcha. What was that one called?
A Face in the Crowd.
Okay.
Awesome one.
Okay. This is gonna be my cap. Is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh, nice.
I mean, that's kind of like I was just shocked by how many people haven't seen it. You know, I'm not sure if you've ever had that experience, but like, dude, I know a lot of people. So, for the sake of transparency, my wife has those movies on in my house probably 5 days a week when she's doing like cleaning or she's gonna do like some craft.
My wife does too.
Always playing, dude.
She watches through that trilogy.
Extended edition. It has to see. My wife says extended edition is the only way to watch it.
I don't know what she's watching or where she's watching them, but like she watches the whole trilogy probably 3 times a year.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was one of those movies that like growing up, I had friends that were like really into it, and it took. I don't even remember the first time that I sat down. It was my wife because like Sam was so into those movies. It was just like, and her dad as well. And I was like, all right, I'll give this a shot. I just thought it was like I don't know what I thought it was necessarily. I don't think I understood the scale of the movie. I didn't understand like how much of an undertaking like producing a movie like that was, or how deep the storylines were, how many threads there were, and how many just like thought-provoking instances, and the characters, and I mean everything about it is just like feels perfect. Like the mood, the music, every shot is just done so well. And you know, it's just one of those, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like it's one of those movies that it's kind of like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's like, you have to convince someone to sit down and watch this, like, you know, the extended edition, I think is like 4 hours per movie. And so it's like to convince someone to like sit down and through that. But for me, I could watch those movies over and over again and pick up different little themes or points of discussion that I have missed the previous 50 times I've watched through all those movies.
Yeah.
And I just think they're a classic. There's obviously, and I know, you know, that when Tolkien was writing it, as far as I understand, like he wanted to be very clear that it wasn't supposed to be some like one-to-one like Christian allegory necessarily, but the whole movie is just littered with Christian theming, obviously, right? When you talk about the writer, and he was like but yeah, just watching it, it reaches back to something that feels pure and uncorrupted. It's not injecting all of this theming and ideology and philosophy that I just think is totally toxic. It's like, you know,
like the show.
Yeah,
I couldn't even watch the show.
Us either.
I tried to watch a show, and I heard enough feedback from different people. I like the people who liked it.
Yeah.
I heard from the people who didn't like it. I read, because I really wanted to watch it. I really wanted to watch it, and I think I tried. I couldn't get through any of it. Like, and it's one of those where I see what's going on,
totally.
and I don't appreciate it.
Yep.
Like, I don't appreciate I don't know if this is still full go or what, but I heard that they were doing the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with some female as Aslan.
What?
And you know, it's like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm reading through that right now with my daughter. We're like halfway through the series. It's a very like strong
Christian allegory.
Like, and I just don't appreciate, you know, twisting these stories in some of the manner that they do.
Yeah.
And if it was just a female voicing Aslan, like, I can live with that.
Sure.
But that's more of an indicator of where everything else is going. And I don't have to look far with The Lord of the Rings, what they just did with The Lord of the Rings, to see where this is going. It's like, y'all just tarnished one of the greatest, like, you know, young adult kind of series. I mean, I started reading The Hobbit when I was like 3rd grade or something, you know, so it's like, and they're trying to do the same damn thing with the Narnia series.
It's like this weird, cheap imitation and perversion of what the original was.
The devil can't create. He just distorts, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, that's a great pick. And I remember watching that at theaters. It started coming out when I was in high school at some point. And I remember like the orcs and some of the scenes, like, I remember feeling like the darkness of those movies. Like it does a really good job conveying like the dark and light like things, and you feel it. At least I did when I watched it. I don't really get to catch it much with my wife.
Fantasy or sci-fi, if you had to pick one or the other?
Probably fantasy.
Yeah, I lean that way as well. But I feel like although there's some overlap in the theming, there's just certain things like, you know, when you talk about things like transhumanism that can only really be attacked. It can be most directly addressed by things like sci-fi. I think the theming, it just lends itself to that. But I think that I've definitely leaned as to fantasy as far as just imagery and stuff for sure.
Sci-fi oftentimes just creeps me out in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes too far in some directions that make me very uncomfortable.
Have you seen Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Dude,
like,
that's a dark one.
It goes pretty far in directions that like make me, you know, uncomfortable. Like I feel like we drown in a lot of that already.
Yeah. Well, you watch it and you're like, yep, it feels like this is exactly what's going on. And like we're exactly moving in this direction. It's so, oh man.
Her. Did you watch Her?
I saw Her.
I remember watching Her and just like, I hate this movie. And dude, I'm never watching it again.
There's literally like, you hear these stories about people like having like AI girlfriends and this kind of stuff.
That,
right?
I mean, that's why I thought of that. Cause it's like, that is literally happening.
Yeah. It's so like, but that's okay. But I think that's kind of like I'm not going to put the cap on it yet. I want you to say one more movie, but movies are to a certain degree like predictive, right? That's like the beauty of a lot of this stuff. Like Her came out, 10 years ago.
That's a large part of the purpose and intent. Like the predictive programming, like they're totally that, especially sci-fi.
Yeah, and I know there's like this debate amongst people that are into this kind of stuff as far as like how much of it is being fed out there to make people more comfortable when this stuff actually comes around and like more accepting of it because they've already seen it in the form of like media. It's like, oh, obviously we're like, yeah, this is
think about like how much stuff they push with like war movies and history stuff. Like you watch some history dramas and it's like they're feeding you this dose of the real Lincoln or the real, you know, World War II. And
totally.
They're leaving out a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
They're leaving out a whole bunch of stuff, but that's kind of the whole game.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. That's the weird thing about media. And like the more that, you know, you read, I plugged this book, I think on a couple other episodes, but like Propaganda by Edward Bernays. And who was, he's the nephew of Freud, I think, which is kind of like a weird when you start connecting big, powerful people and guys that had that kind of influence. It's like you start to see what that game is. And you know, the more you can look at a lot of this stuff with those eyes and see like, oh, we're getting propagandized to
and I think
all the time.
A lot of people and myself prior to taking a lot of this stuff more seriously and getting more exposure, like, no, like that's it's just a movie. Like that's not what this is. Like, or it's just Taylor Swift or whatever. It's just this pop song.
Yep.
Sorry, I call out Taylor Swift. I don't really have anything against it, but it's twice.
So. Yeah, I got it.
But like that kind of stuff, and the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, and you don't have to go all the way down, but as a critical thinking adult, you should go down a little bit. Like you should not just stay on the surface, like because none of the stuff that you're consuming is done at the surface.
Yeah.
Like those things are done down the rabbit hole. You need to understand some of this stuff. So go down a little bit, but then once you do, like if you read like Edward Bernays or something, it's like, oh,
yeah,
of course this isn't accidental. Of course it's not an accident that Civil War comes out.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, none of these things are accidental.
Yeah. You know, I just want to say this last thing. Norm Macdonald has that bit about awesome. Like, it's like the one thing I noticed about history is that the good guy always wins. Isn't that great? Yeah. It's like, dude. Yeah, it's so poignant.
Norm is the GOAT. Like,
Cody used to. That was his favorite comedian.
Cody could deliver the Norm jokes so well too. He was really good at those.
And he would always give credit after he would drop it. I got that from Norm Macdonald, and he was always pushing me to read his biography. He said that's like a really good read.
Yeah. Did you get it?
Read. No.
I don't know who got it. I think his brother made it.
Plug.
Yeah, last
final movie.
Last one we're gonna go with is one of the more modern ones, It's Godzilla -1.
Yeah, me and
Did you
Cody
watch
watched
it?
that one together,
Dude,
with
Godzilla,
Kennedy.
and I was looking to see what Cody's highest rated movies were. This isn't his first, but this was his second highest rated movie, tied with another.
What was his number one?
The Godfather.
Oh, okay.
Part 1.
Never seen it.
Which was also awesome.
Roger.
I will not digress.
Okay.
Godzilla -1 is awesome. Like the perfect popcorn movie. Extremely well done. It's in subtitles, that's fine. Like it doesn't really detract from it at all. I've told so many people to just go, like, you want to have a good time and like feel like you're just at the movie theater or something, like just kick back and watch something entertaining. Like Godzilla -1 is awesome. They really nailed it with that movie. And it was Cody had picked it for a free for all, but it was still in theaters, so we didn't get to watch it at that time. And then it ended up like 6 months later or something. He ended up picking it. But I thought I saw it after he had tried to pick it and was like, dude, this movie's awesome. I went to the theaters twice. So I knew if Cody's like pushing on it that much,
for sure.
I knew it was going to be good. And then I saw it as soon as it came out before the podcast stuff and was like, Cody, that movie sucked.
Bro,
like, what the hell are you talking
serious?
about? Yeah, I tried to carry that up for like a day.
Oh my god!
But he just started laughing. He knew as soon as I watched it. Like, I'd love it, and it is awesome. So yeah, Godzilla -1, a newer one, and it's from the last couple of years.
I just remember the scene where they're like coming up with a game plan, and there's recognition that it's like, dude, we're not gonna make it through this, but there was like this sense of duty, and we have to do this.
Yeah.
And the guys that like stuck around. Oh, dude, I mean, me and Cody were in here like, oh my gosh, dude, can you believe it?
Really good job on the Godzilla.
Totally.
A lot of heart. Great, like the story, like the way that they like kind of try and fight Godzilla is like cool. Like the plans they come up with. I hate when you come up with a plan in a movie and it's just so absurd.
Yeah.
It's just like this is so stupid. Like, this would never work. And granted, their plan probably would never work, but it at least is like feasible and entertaining, and like you can suspend disbelief a little bit. Sure. It's fun. So
yeah, I think that's a good closer. Man, I feel like the episode was just picking up when we started talking about like propaganda and stuff.
Yeah.
But this is a good trial to like bring in new theming to the podcast. I wonder how it's gonna do because there was so little martial arts talk in it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think like bringing in more theming and more like generalist topics is going to be ideal. I've almost thought about changing it up where it's like, okay, this week we're going to do like strict martial arts discussion. This week, okay, we're going to do like a generalist cast, or like separating it into like not like a Patreon thing. I don't know, but I'm still trying to work my way through all this stuff, but I'm like trying to feel out how to structure all this. But I love like when we start talking about things like propaganda and symbolism and all this kind of thing. But I also think because I've been utilizing these clips for like social media, most of my views and most of my engagement is coming off of that. So like, and I know this is kind of an aside and it seems like we're just kind of like bantering, but this the thought of like, you do something like this where it's like movie recommendations, you break down, and then the program will literally take, okay, they're talking about this movie, and then cut a 2-minute video, and that stuff just
this is good bite-sized
bite-sized little things to be talking about. But dude, movies are, it's kind of crazy. This is the last thing I'm gonna say. Once you kind of pass through the veil of understanding how significant the stuff that you're consuming actually is for your day-to-day life and the way you think and the way you function in the world, it's both a very kind of a scary thing, right? That was the first thing where it was like, all my kids, like, how am I supposed to beat a $1 trillion propaganda machine in a world that wants to completely consume them? I'm just one person. So there's like that kind of like heavy component to it. But the other side of it is like, you will get so much more. First, you're like arming yourself to be able to like have discussions with your kids about stuff that gets put into movies, and that's just in media in general, and like forms of media that we probably don't even know that are in the pipeline. But the other side of it is you'll have like a much deeper experience, and you're no longer just passively consuming and taking in things that you don't even realize are impacting you in potentially a negative way.
I think that negative thing is it's heavy. There's a lot of responsibility, but then like beyond that, you realize how much power you have.
Totally.
And that's the cool part. Like you go down the rabbit hole far enough and you realize, oh, like I have so much ability to like control this. Like not for society, but like you have a tremendous amount of responsibility for yourself and your family, and you can actually do something about it.
Totally. Yep. That's where it starts, man. Like, I mean, it's even like when it comes to like changing culture, dude, it starts within your own household. You know what I mean? And so being able to address that kind of stuff, you're just better. You're better equipped to deal with that once you start actively trying to dissect what's going on in a lot of this stuff. Yeah, and I don't want to necessarily end it on a heavy note. I get that, but like this is kind of how the conversation tends to go when Matt's around and gets kind of deep. We tried to keep it kind of fun and like a light topic but like holy crap, dude! I feel like there was so much less laughter in this just because the theming of some of this stuff is kind of heavy, and the beginning topic ended up being a little heavier than I thought and went in a direction I wasn't anticipating. But that's just the nature of the game, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys. This has been episode 23 of the Grappler's Dilemma podcast. Thank you for listening. If you want to reach out to us on Instagram, it's at the Grappler's Dilemma. The same thing with YouTube, at the Grappler's Dilemma. And about 90% of the people that are watching and listening to the podcast aren't subscribed or following it. And it kills me in the algorithm, all right? If all those people would just subscribe, like people that are watching the videos online or even like clips or, you know, the most action I'm getting is on TikTok, dude, oddly enough, and I freaking hate that app just for all the reasons we said. It's like bite-sized propaganda in the worst way. It's just brain rot. But that's just the direction a lot of this stuff is going, dude. I'm getting to a point where I'm thinking about the podcast as being a vessel for putting out short-form content, which is really a weird directional shift in what I thought that this was going to be, because I don't think... Like, even though podcasting is exploding and tons of people listen to Rogan, it's still only a small percentage of people that are actually listening to long form podcasts. Most people are just doom scrolling and picking up little tidbits on their phone day to day. So anyway, I got nothing else to say. Thank you guys for listening. New topic, new structure. It was a lot of fun. As always, train hard, stay safe. Oh.